The atmosphere in this area had previously been very unpleasant, especially at the former Blockbuster Video building, which made you feel as if you had left the planet when you entered it. The former Social Security building was particularly depressing, and full of angry people. The presence of a funeral director ties in well with the Mausoleum and Creative Memorials, and Dovecot Road was a suicide hotspot with people jumping to their deaths from the top of the Sainsbury car park, about 3 or 4 times per year. In the Christian religion, the dove symbolizes the Holy Spirit. Could this mean that these suicides were in some way connected with a non-physical entity? Dovecot Road no longer exists, and the aforementioned buildings have been replaced with a newer, larger Sainsbury. The car park remains, but is more difficult to access due to increased security precautions. The new Sainsbury building is a great improvement, and has a better atmosphere. Frogmore has had a reputation for being a place where drunks like to gather, and a place for criminal behavior in general. At the time of writing, the Octagon has a lot of empty shops in it, and an atmosphere of abandonment. The step pyramid roofing style stands out as being unusual, and to the author's knowledge, this style of roofing does not occur anywhere else at High Wycombe retail premises. Zeno was an ancient Greek philosopher, who formulated paradoxes that defended the belief that motion and change are illusory. Zeno is also the name of another ancient Greek philosopher, who founded the Stoic school. The same sounding word, Zeno, spelt with an X, can mean stranger, foreigner, or enemy. Inside Tame House, there is an atmosphere of abandonment and emptiness. Another word for tax is cess. The word cess is associated with things like cesspool, privy, drainpipe, and in general refers to the storage, and/or removal of waste material. The Brunel railway shed looks dark, depressing, and run down. It stands apart from its surroundings in a physical and psychological way. There is a peculiar heavy atmosphere around this building, which is echoed at the adjacent railway station. As mentioned previously, the Brunel railway shed was formerly a car tire retailer. The bootlegger is reminiscent of the Dashwood Mausoleum, in that it has a flint facade, and Tuscan-looking columns at its entrance. The bootlegger is directly opposite the Brunel shed, which means that the Mausoleum line passes directly through it. Like the Brunel shed, the bootlegger public house has a peculiar, dark, atmosphere. The Old Tea Warehouse is a halfway house that houses criminals who have been released from prison, the formerly homeless, and those who have been released from mental institutions. People who get evicted from the local YMCA have been known to take up residency there. The Hellfire Club was believed by many to have been a secret society much like the Freemasons. There is a Freemasonic theme to Creative Memorials, or to put it in their own words, monumental masons. The Mausoleum line therefore has 3 secret society themes at critical points along its path, that being the Hellfire Club activities supposedly at the caves, the Creative Memorials operation at Pastures Crossroad, and the Freemasonic garden at the railway station. The author views these secret society themes as not significant enough to draw any meaningful conclusions from. This is because the symbolic links within the secret society theme are not conclusive enough to reliably demonstrate a non-physical reality as their origin. The author feels that to maintain there is synchronistic proof of secret society activity at the caves, using the monumental Masons sign at Creative Memorials, and the Freemasonic display at the railway station, is an example of apophenia. Apophenia can be loosely described as the human tendency to perceive meaningful patterns within random data, or more simply, false pattern recognition. That being said, one cannot rule out the possibility that Dashwood was involved in Freemasonic activities at the caves. The evidence is presented here for the sake of thoroughness and inclusiveness. It is for the reader to determine if there is, or is not, a Freemasonic connection to the Mausoleum line. There are numerous similarities to indicate that the Mausoleum on West Wycombe Hill is analogous to Castle Hill House on the former Castle Hill estate. For example, like the Dashwood estate, the former Castle Hill estate has a history of being occupied by wealthy and influential people, and the exterior of Castle Hill House seems to mirror the interior of the Mausoleum, as if it were an inverted copy of it. Perhaps the Dashwood Mausoleum and Castle Hill House mark the true beginning and end of the Mausoleum line. The YouTube user, Ben the J Reporter, made some interesting comments about the atmosphere at High Wycombe Railway Station in his video, Hellfire Caves Part 1 of 10, High Wycombe.
It's actually a pretty spectacular sight when you're on the coach, travelling over the flyover. And this whole town is actually in a very, very picturesque and spectacular area. I mean, it's in a valley. In fact, the name Wycombe, it means a white valley. It's an old Celtic word. It's pre-Anglo-Saxon, pre-Roman. It's a Celtic word. It's a very ancient name, and it means white valley. Now, it's a very picturesque spot. I've never been here before. Literally, you see the whole city spread out below you, almost in a kind of fairy tale-like way. Now I'm here, I kind of noticed for the first time I've been here, I get a very, very strange feeling. This place has an extremely odd atmosphere, an extremely odd place. Now, it's rather like the feeling I get in Milton Keynes, but slightly different. The energy of the place is unusual, and it's going to take me a while to sort of analyse that. It's very odd that a town this size seems to have so little access to the outside world, to other places. Normally you get much more, you get more, it'd be more networked, if you know what I mean. As I said, it's got a strange feeling to this place, and I'm going to have a look around.
The YouTube user LemSip posted the following as a response to Ben the J Reporter's Hellfire Caves Part 1 of 10, High Wycombe.
Lived there for 18 months on leaving school with my first job. The place had a very strange atmosphere, and at first I lived in digs in a village just outside on the same side of the town as the place where I worked. But when I got frustrated by living so far out, and away from friends, I moved to a shared house on West Wycombe Road for convenience, so I could have access to the town centre, work, and the countryside. But that street and the house I lived in had a very strange atmosphere, and I could never feel comfortable there at weekends, so went away a lot at the weekend. The other people in the house were rarely there at weekends either. Being away almost every weekend also took a toll on my energy levels, and affected my work, so I had to be given easier work to do. I started applying for jobs in London, as I really felt I had to get away from High Wycombe, and eventually got one. By that time I felt a certain animosity for the people there, and can see how they had become withdrawn, and at the same time two-faced, because of the paranormal activity, and low vibrations. My behavior had become strange, and I would have bad feelings which also affected the way I behaved towards them.
The author has noticed that, on the approach to High Wycombe along the A40 London Road from the east, there's a sense of darkness and foreboding that builds as you pass the railway station, and head into the town centre. It's as if some heavy weight is pressing down on your body, and you feel as if energy is being sucked out of you. The same can be said when approaching High Wycombe from the west, heading east along the Mausoleum line, but the effect is not as pronounced, not until you reach the town centre. Before the author moved to High Wycombe in 2010, he had an excess of energy that had to be dissipated with a brisk 30-minute walk every evening. After living in the town for just a few months, he was left with just enough energy to perform daily tasks, and intermittently experienced feelings of lethargy, despondency, and resentment. These effects could be explained by High Wycombe being on top of an aquifer, or having underground streams in the vicinity. The website geo.org explains the negative effects of being close to a water line.
It's one thing to experience the effect of a water line by standing over it for a short time. It's another thing to work or sleep over a water line. A water line has a yin, or passive field, associated with it. Being on a water line will tend to slow you down, and make you feel lazy or apathetic. People who work at desks over water lines often have problems getting enough energy to get work done, or even to get started. Water lines can have serious negative effects when the water line is polluted physically or psychically. Negative water lines not only create a place of passivity, but can be detrimental to one's physical and mental health. I consider negative water lines to be one of the world's major causes of disease.
Notice the reference to psychic pollution of the water line producing serious negative effects. High Wycombe's Earth energy system has probably been contaminated by something that is draining energy out of the local inhabitants, and leaving them feeling angry and despondent. West Wycombe Road would have to be a hot spot for this energetic leaching. The author has visited the caves at least 3 times, and each time on leaving, has felt the urge to dispose of all of his clothes and bathe, as if his body and clothing were contaminated. On occasion, the same effect occurs when leaving High Wycombe town centre to return to the suburbs. Again, there is a feeling of being contaminated, and the need to discard clothing and bathe.